All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Nelva Bryant. Welcome to this next episode of When Pets Fly, the Veterinary Air Travel Podcast. Again, I'm Dr. Nelva Bryant. I'm your host, and I have here a special guest with us, Dr. Doug Mader. Before I go into that, let me introduce myself, and then Doug, I'll let you introduce yourself if you don't mind. But
Sure.
I am Dr. Nelva Bryant. I'm a veterinarian, and I've been working in the airline industry for about the past good 8 years and learned a lot of information that from that exposure in that role. One of the main things is just learning and just sharing more information about pet travel and how to really focus on pets during air travel. With that knowledge base, I developed my own platform, When Pets Fly, to share that information. So I have a website. I have, hold on a second. I have a website. I have a social media presence on Facebook and Instagram. And I have also been doing these podcasts. I've been doing these podcasts for the past good 5 years, and I share basically my guests are different stakeholders in the animal transportation industry. And today I have a great repeat guest, and I can't remember, Doug, if this is your third or the second time you've been with us, but
Hat tricks. This is number 3.
It's number 3. Awesome. Obviously, we love you here, and our followers love you too as well. But I have Dr. Doug Mader here. He's a veterinarian extraordinaire. Triple boarded. I mean, goodness, I don't think I can actually adequately describe you and what you've done with your career as a veterinarian. I think it's amazing. And it's also attesting to the fact that veterinarians have so many roles they can play in society, and it's amazing. And I hate it when people just relegate us to say, take care of dogs and cats or, large animals. So I love it that you have expanded your career and done so many things with it. But so if you don't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself, Doug, and we'll jump on into this conversation today.
Sure, Nova. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here with you today. And I enjoy getting this opportunity. So thank you very much. My name is Dr. Doug Mader. I'm a triple boarded veterinary specialist. And one of the specialties that I have is in zoo medicine. So I do a lot of work with exotic animals. I've been a veterinarian for over 40 years. And my career has kind of gone the whole spectrum. And now I'm just have a concierge practice where I take care of a few small zoos, alligator farms, a public aquarium, and a butterfly house. And then I'm doing a lot of writing. So I've switched from writing textbooks and refereed journal articles to now I'm writing books for the general public. So that's kind of where I am in my career right now. But that 40 years has given me a ton of experience in all sorts of different areas. And one of the clients that I have is a shipping company, and they ship animals commercially. So I do have quite a bit of experience with the exotic animal shipping.
That's awesome. That's really good to know. And I'm so happy that you're associated with a shipping company, because it's going to show you that now they see, again, what we can add and the value we add in this environment. Because good say years ago, shipping companies for animals, they didn't have a veterinarian associated with them, someone to really focus on animal welfare and safety of that animal species. So glad that you are definitely associated with this organization.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, especially back in the day, you do what you could do to save costs. And as you and I both know, oftentimes veterinarians are considered a cost that's not necessary. But the reality is, protect our animal friends, veterinarians should always be right at the top. And this company that I worked for, I've literally worked with them for 3 decades. And since day one, they've always made veterinary health or animal health a priority, which is great that they've included it. And I think it's so incredibly important that everybody thinks about our animals and our pets or whatever we're shipping and puts their health paramount, because, maybe you and I are used to walking down the gangway and hopping on a plane and storing our bags on the overhead and then comfortably sitting or uncomfortably sitting in our seats, right? Mm-hmm. Well, a rabbit or a parrot or a dog or a cat, that's foreign to them. So no, I mean, it's extremely important that we take that into consideration.
Yeah. And, and what I'm trying to do as far as the things that I found, as far as the roles I've played and everything, is also add into what we do, the roles that we have played in the past, and realize that there's more that we can do. Because if you think about it, being a USDA accredited veterinarian, signing off documents for international travel for an animal, I mean, that's usually we're thinking of just our role is just to sign a document basically, but it's so much more we need to do to ensure animal safety and welfare for that animal, dog, cat, or whatever animal during air travel. And that's one thing I'm trying to focus on and changing, is that we've got to change our role, and realize that we can do more to better prepare these animals for air travel.
Right, right. And for one of the things I just like to caution people about, and this is one of these kind of delicate subjects, and that is I am aware of many people that will find a veterinarian who will sign health certificates just for the money. And here, I'll sign a stack of blank health certificates for you, and then now you can put them on the plane or put them on the UPS, whatever you want to do. You know what? That's not doing anything good. Okay,
no.
That's nothing but bad when that happens. First of all, the veterinarian, it's illegal for them to do that.
Right.
The other thing is, it's certainly, if you are the person shipping those animals and you are hiring a veterinarian that's not looking at them, then your ethics are not good either.
Right.
And most importantly, it's not good for the animals. There's a reason we do that. There's a reason we have a health certificate, because we want to make sure that animal can handle the flight. I've had over the years many times where a client has brought me a pet and I refuse to sign a health certificate for travel because it's not healthy. And so what do? They go down the road and they find Dr. Jane or John Doe, who they don't care. As long as they get the money, they sign the health certificate, put the animal on the plane. My favorite sad but funny but not funny story is a dog that had parvo, and they took it on the plane, and halfway through the flight, the dog exploded, and you can imagine the mess that made. Yeah. And that's not good for the other travelers. It's not good for the dog. It's not good for the crew. It's just not good at all. But it's because a veterinarian is willing to sign a blank form.
That's really sad. I actually, I've known of a situation too in the past where, say, a puppy has traveled by cargo and it gets to its destination and then breaks with parvo, and they go back and they'll blame the airline for the breaking with parvo. And I'm like, that was inherently within that dog prior. He just happened to stress the whole event. Of course, It's now exacerbated, but it's not airline fault. It's what they come with it. And that's why, again, the importance of checking and making sure they're medically fit to fly, and just not signing off a document to send something to make somebody happy. So there's a lot of things that folks need to consider and realize the ramifications behind signing these health certificates. But you know what? I think as far as the profession, a lot of veterinarians now are refusing to sign or refusing to keep their USDA accreditation too. That comes up as well because they don't want the hassles and everything.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I'm retired now, but a few years ago when I was in practice, my hospital was the only hospital in the county that was USDA accredited to sign health certificates, because a lot of the veterinarians, like you said, they just didn't want the responsibility. Yeah.
So we got both things. You got the ones that are just unethical, just doing it for the money, and the ones that's like, I'm not going to do it. So it makes it hard for pet owners to understand the ramifications behind it.
I get that too. We're getting way off the subject, but it's okay.
I know. We can't help it. We'll go back. Don't worry.
I get it, because we just, again, I told you I still have a concierge practice. I do most of the exotics. My wife is also a veterinarian, and she does small animals. She has a concierge practice too, and she's still USDA 2 accredited. And she does the health certificates for people who travel internationally. And as I'm sure you know, some of these international travels, oh my God, they're incredibly difficult. I mean, it is unbelievably challenging to get a little dog from here to South Africa.
Right.
The amount of hoops you have to jump through, it's unbelievable.
Yes, definitely. But yes, I'm sorry, we can go off. And what I love about having a fellow veterinarian is that we just start boom, 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 and everything. But to move us back to the topic here, I wanted Dr. Doug to be with us to really share more about, number one, he's written 2 books. One is coming out very, very soon. And then we can go into more as far as your thoughts on exotic animals, traveling by air. There's plenty of topics that, honestly, and hopefully we don't miss them, but some main key things is I definitely want to talk about your books, because I think that's awesome that you're doing this outside of just saying references for veterinarians. Now you're talking to the general public about your experiences as a veterinarian all these years, which is awesome. But I also want to see if we can talk on, honestly, some key issues with transporting exotic animals, wildlife trafficking. I know there's also a new initiative out on Let Bunnies Fly, having rabbits been traveling in cabin. Just a thought on just a little bit of thought on that. And then also I want to just address just any issues or situations you've encountered with pet owners traveling with exotic pets. So
sure. Well,
let's go back. Yeah, tell me more about your book and what you've been doing with that.
Okay. Well, the first book was The Vet at Noah's Ark, and that was about my time living in Los Angeles during a very tumultuous period in history in the early 90s. And it surrounded the stress of the Rodney King riots. I don't know if you remember that, but that extended through several cities. When it happened, it actually kind of blossomed through several cities across the country. But my hospital was right down there in the middle of all of that. So the first book, The Vet at Noah's Ark, was about working and living at that hospital during that period of time. That also happened to be the period that I studied for and took my first set of specialty boards. The second book, called The Vet from the Urban Jungle, is also in Los Angeles. So it's part of a series, like the All Creatures Great and Small series. Dr. James Herriot has 4 books. My goal has always been to write 4 books. So the second book is also in Los Angeles. And it comes out about 2 years after the first book. And it starts right when Jurassic Park, the movie, came out. And what did that do? Everybody wanted to run out and buy a pet dinosaur, right? And the interesting thing, because everything kind of ties together, so all your questions really relate to each other. The interesting thing was that's also about the same time that reptile smuggling really took off. Because everybody wanted to go out and buy a pet dinosaur after Jurassic Park came out. They want their lizard, their snake. They want the little chameleons that have the triceratops, they look like little mini triceratops dinosaurs. And so it's not like you can, back in the mid-90s, you could run to a pet store and buy a triceratops. So animal smuggling, reptile smuggling took off. And reptile smuggling, I was very involved with it as a veterinary expert for the Fish and Wildlife. It paralleled drug smuggling and gun smuggling in terms of the amount of money that brought in. And in fact, a lot of the reptile smugglers would bring in a crate of cobras, and they get to the immigration or customs at LAX in Los Angeles Airport, and the customs agent goes, "Cobras? I'm not going to open that lid." Well, guess what's in the bottom of the crate? Cocaine or machine guns or smuggled drugs. So these drugs and weapons and reptiles were tied together. In fact, right now there's a really, really good documentary on HBO Max, and it's based on a book called The Lizard King, and it's all about the original characters that were involved in the explosion of reptile smuggling in the late 80s and early 90s. It's a fascinating watch. And interestingly enough, sadly enough, I know most of the people. Somehow I was involved, either as an expert witness or a client. I mean, as a veterinary, I know most of the people that are in that documentary. But it's really, if you're interested in that, it's pretty fascinating. So the second book is also in LA. It's right after everybody runs out and buys a pet dinosaur. So it's just full of great stories about dogs and cats. And, it really is about the human-animal bond, because people forget that the human-animal bond isn't just, you sitting with your cat watching TV, or me walking my dog down the street, or a young lady riding her horse in the park, whatever. A human-animal bond, it can be a snake, it can be a spider, it can be a fish tank, it can be a bird, it can be an ant farm. That animal bond can extend to many, many different things. So there's a couple of vignettes in my second book where I work with Fish and Game, and they brought in these turtles called fly river turtles. And a fly river turtle is basically the freshwater version of a sea turtle. Mm-hmm. They have flippers, but they live in fresh water. And back in the early 90s, you never saw them. And so Fish and Game confiscated a big box of them at the LAX airport, and the paperwork had been forged saying that they were captive bred and they were just being shipped locally. Well, they weren't captive bred. They were smuggled in from Northern Australia. And so they brought the animals to me and they said, "Can you prove these animals were captive bred, or they're imported or captive bred?" And I go, "Well, actually, we probably can pretty easily." And so I collected a fecal sample on them, and I looked at their normal parasite load. All the parasites are parasites from Australia.
So there you go.
here's your evidence right here. Here's your smoking gun. Each one of these animals is infested with Australian worms. They wouldn't have got them here in the United States if they were captive bred. And so they were able to prosecute the guys that's from smuggling and everything else. All those animals eventually got turned over to zoos. And I think that was probably some of the original group of fly river turtles that now, because they breed well in captivity, populate zoos all over the country. And in fact, now there's so many of them that they're available commercially if you buy a proper license. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And it all because they were smuggled in.
Well, you know, the interesting thing as far as that is just wildlife trafficking and everything. You mentioned the parasites that were inside these animals and their fecal samples are something that's foreign to the United States. One thing that people don't realize is when you smuggle or traffic these animals into the United States, you're bringing potential pathogens here to the United States that we don't have.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
You know?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And it brings in, you know, I'm sure obviously you're familiar with, and for our listeners, something called the One Health Initiative. And that has to do with veterinary health or animal health, human health, and health of the earth, health of the planet. And your point that you made is extremely good about smuggling animals, because you're not just smuggling a turtle. You're not just smuggling a snake or a small primate. So also in my book, there's a little vignette about a group of leopard tortoises that were found coming through Miami, and they're from Africa. And when tortoises came in, they were sold. So they weren't actually caught at the customs. They were actually made into the pet market. And then a client brought in this tortoise from Africa, and it was just doing really poorly. So I did my exam on it. I had never seen one before other than just in pictures. And then when I was doing my exam, I noticed it was full of ticks. So I very carefully removed the ticks, and I looked at the ticks. I'm thinking, these aren't brown dog ticks. These aren't deer ticks. These aren't Pacific ticks. These aren't Lone Star ticks. And so I called a friend, one of my former employees who was a PhD student at the university. He brought him to the university to an entomologist, and they had him identified. They were Amblyomma marmorarum, which is the tick that carries heartwater disease. So the tortoise is a vector for the tick, which is a vector for heartwater disease, which is a horrible virus that wipes out livestock. It's a horrible disease in the United States.
A foreign animal disease.
Foreign animal disease carried, and these ticks carried on the tortoises. They were hitchhiking on the tortoises. And so I called USDA immediately and I said, hey, I got this, found out about the shipment of tortoises loaded with amblyomma ticks, and they're the carriers of heartwater disease. And the USDA said, well, we don't care. I said, what do you mean you don't care? And they go, USDA doesn't regulate reptiles. I said, I know that. I said, but the reptiles are a vector for mammal disease. That's a reportable disease. Sir, you know, USDA doesn't regulate reptiles. We can't get involved. And I said, but the ticks. And so I couldn't get through their head. And so I documented it. I wrote down every name of everybody I spoke to, the time and the phone numbers that I called. About 10 years later, somebody at the USDA office finally woke up and said, wait a minute. These ticks are carrying heartwater disease. And then they completely banned it. And now you can't import African reptiles anymore, which is good.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Open their eyes.
Yeah. And
so because that's a potential foreign animal disease that can impact our agricultural industry. Wow.
And so for those of you that are listening that aren't familiar with the concept of a foreign animal disease, everybody has heard about this potential invasion of screwworm coming up from Central America, right? I mean, it's been all over the news, all over the pet trade. In fact, now there have been some emergency approvals of drugs for our domestic pets to use against screwworm. About 10 years ago, we had screwworm here on the island where I live, and I live in the United States, so I just live in the Florida Keys. We had screwworm come up probably from a nation not too far from where I live. I can't mention a name. And came over on a raft and infected our local deer herd. And it was bad, but we're getting off subject. So anyway, foreign animal diseases are a big deal. And yes, when they travel via air in smuggled animals, that's one way you get disease. I mean, think about Ebola virus and all these other things. How do they get here? On somebody in an airplane that was connected somewhere else, some other country. So travel and disease is a big deal.
No, it gets here quickly if you're not paying attention. And again, if you smuggle wildlife, again, let me think. let me pull out my CDC days. Civets at one point. I mean, CDC regulates the importation of civets because I think they were associated with, oh gosh, I'm wasn't MERS. What was before that? And it's related to COVID. What was before MERS? Ah, shoot, I forgot the name. But there's a lot of diseases that initially these particular animals were associated with these outbreaks of zoonotic diseases in people. So they're actually regulated. So civets, there's also certain turtles that CDC regulates. They're more for salmonella, but I wonder if you should have contacted CDC a long time ago in reference to that, because they're concerned about the importation of diseases of public health significance, and those reptiles. Either way, it's covered. I'm glad it's covered now. But non-human primates are regulated because of the diseases they can potentially transport to us, herpes, B, and all these other diseases. And then, of course, rabies in dogs is regulated. So, yeah. So, but back to wildlife. You get a monkey or reptile or any other animal that has that you're trying to smuggle into the United States, thinking it's no big deal. It's not a big, no big deal. It is a big deal because, number one, you're impacting the health and welfare of that animal because you're not accustomed to taking care of it, and you might not even be a good person to take care of it. So you're putting the animal at risk. It probably could have been endangered. And then also you got to worry about disease transmission and biosecurity in reference to that. So it's huge implications behind it.
Yeah, no, it really is. It sure is. Yeah. So kind of going back to the building blocks, we know that dogs and cats are, in most cases, dogs and cats are allowed to travel in the plane in a carrier if they fit into a carrier under the seat.
Right.
Okay, we're not talking about that today. Bigger dogs, they go in a carrier in the cargo hold. And so as of right now, only dogs and cats are basically allowed in carriers on planes. You can get, with rare exception, sometimes they'll allow a small bird on a plane in a carrier, but you really have to do a lot of paperwork and make a lot of phone calls and get a lot of special permissions to do that. So that's something, and I do want to touch on that real quick. You can put birds in carriers in the cargo hold, and people think that the cargo hold is not pressurized. Well, that's not true. The cargo hold is just as pressurized as it is in the seat you're sitting in up above your baggage. But no, it's scary for the bird. I mean, a bird doesn't understand that. It's not black. They have lights down there for them, but still, that's a scary experience. If a bird has never been put in a carrier and put in a cargo hold, without anybody around comforting them, and it's cold. And so, yes, these animals it's not good for them. So the question that I frequently get is, well, should I sedate it? And my general rule is I don't sedate them. I really don't, because I don't like sedating something and then not having somebody watch it. It's just not healthy. It's not safe. If a bird does need sedation, let's say for the car ride to the airport because they get car sick, there are medications. I do use clonazepam. I'm not going to give out doses because there's no one dose that fits all. So you should take it to your bird veterinarian and talk about that. But the general rule of thumb is I don't sedate animals if I ship them. It's extremely, extremely rare. Depending on the airlines, they may or may not allow other non-domestic species in the cargo hold. You really need to contact the airline and the destination where you're going. And then the embassies, if you have to have health certificates, what they need to have on our end and on their end, because it's not a one-way street. Because frequently, and I've had this happen, unfortunately, where clients have come in for a health certificate, not necessarily for me, but they come to me for a second opinion. They had gone somewhere else, got the health certificate, got to the airport, and got on the plane, only to land in Denmark to find out that they don't have the proper requirements to enter Denmark. And then that animal has to get shipped back.
Right.
That's not healthy for the animal whatsoever. And it's just stressful and expensive, and it's bad all around.
Oh, yeah.
So traveling with these non-domestic species, it is a lot of work. You got to find a veterinarian, USDA 2 accredited veterinarian that is willing to help you walk through it. And now I'm going to just say something for the sake of the veterinarians. It's a tremendous amount of work for us. So we're going to charge you. If you bring me I don't care, a snake, and you want to take it to, I don't care, Italy, and I have to do the research. Like, hey, face it, if I'm a lawyer and you call me and ask me about a question and I have to look it up, I'm going to charge you for my research time. Us
Right.
veterinarians, we're too good about that. We tend to do things for free all the time. But something like a health certificate to a foreign country for an unusual animal, it could take me 5-10 hours to figure it out. Don't.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that it's really, yeah, I think they it as simple as just a simple form you sign, but it's not. It takes a lot of research.
It
You've got to
does.
meet the requirements of that destination country, and then also the airline might have specific requirements too. Then also you should, I mean, even though again we've been focused on those two aspects, if anything, to complete the documents, but you haven't focused on that animal. What have you done to make sure it's medically fit to fly and everything with that? Because that needs to be addressed as well. So, but yeah, it takes a lot to do that. And imagine you in practice, and think about you. So you're a little bit different, but say your wife is in practice, or veterinarians that are in clinical practice, and they have their routine appointments, and all of a sudden now we have a health certificate appointment. That, like, for me, when I was doing it mentally, that's difficult to change mental gears. I now have to be in research mode. I have to, number one, know all the places to search for this information, because if you don't know where, you're just kind of doing a Google search and figure out, okay, where you need to know your valid sources to research your information and gather it all together. And when you have an exotic animal species, that's really difficult, because the information for a dog or cat might be easier to find than it is for shipping that to a certain country compared to reptiles or any other exotic animal species.
And interesting, you know what I run into quite often is I had a shipment of tortoises that went to China. And then you start calling these different places and they go, well, I don't know. And it's not in there. It's not in our rule books.
Right.
Okay. Now what do you do? Okay. Do you say, okay, well, here, good luck, Hail Mary, and then have them get there and have the animals sent back?
Something like that. Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing is, that's a big issue with the exotic species, because a lot of them are not covered. Some of them may be a boa constrictor, a python, I don't know, a red-eared slide or something like that. But you get some of these really exotic species and they're not covered, and the people don't want to be responsible for it. They don't want to sign off on it. So they say, I don't know. And then they try and pass the buck. And you as a veterinarian find yourself, on the phone making 8,000 phone calls to try and figure this out, or having one of your staff members do it. So it's like you say, it's a lot of work. So let's get back to, how did we get that boa constrictor to, I don't care, Mexico City, okay?
Right.
Or let's just keep it domestic. Let's start with the basics first.
Domestic is a lot easier, because the regulations behind that, there's more state regulations that you have to comply with. You don't have to worry about as many federal things.
Many of them are very different. But let's say,
unless you're going to Hawaii. Now that's going to be definitely their requirements more. It's state requirements, but it's more stringent going into Hawaii.
Well, they're more stringent in a lot of the exotic species you can't even bring to Hawaii.
Yeah, actually, right.
I mean, forget it if you think you're going to get a snake or an iguana or a python, hedgehog or something like that to Hawaii. That's not happening.
Yeah, correct.
They do allow tortoises, interestingly enough. I always thought that was odd. They allow tortoises, but nothing else. So okay, you're in Atlanta, I'm in Key West, which is in Florida. So you want to send, you're moving here and you want to bring your 3, bearded dragons with you, okay? Well, you're not going to bring them on the airplane, okay? They're not going to let you do it. That's just not going to happen. So how do you get them here if you don't want to drive? There are options that you have. There are some commercial companies out there. Now, for the sake of full disclosure, I don't work for any of these companies, but the one that I use the most, and again, I do not work for them, is called shipyourreptile.com.
I've heard them before.
Yeah, they're really good. And the reason that I recommend them is because they've been around forever, and they're extremely, extremely thorough. They check all the boxes. Everything has got to be legal or they won't do it, which I give them credit for. And so you contact them, you tell them what kind of reptile you have. You have to have a proper health certificate by the veterinarian that matches both states, the exit state and the entry state. They then ship you a transport, a federally approved transport box.
Good.
Okay. And then depending on the reptile species, for instance, a Jackson's chameleon does really well at about 70 degrees. Okay. Whereas something like a green iguana is going to need 95 degrees. So they ship the containers with proper environmental conditioning. So in certain cases, they might put heat packs in them. In certain cases, they might put cold packs in them, depending on the species. And if your flight's going to be 15 hours and your heat pack only lasts 6 hours, you've got to make an arrangement so that when an animal goes to the layover, those packages are swapped out properly. So again, it's not real simple, but they do it, and they do a really good job at it. And then once you get that animal to the destination, then you ship the empty package back to shipyourreptiles.com, and then they give you the refund for the cost of the package.
Nice.
So it's extremely extremely well done. It's extremely safe. They do a really good job. And I just quick Google search the other day. There are half a dozen different companies that do that. I just don't have the experience with them that I do with the first one. But those options are available. And just to be thorough, shipping, they will not ship your pet mouse. They won't ship your guinea pig. They won't ship your parrot. They only do ectotherms. And an ectotherm is going to be your frog, your lizard, your snake, your tarantula, your scorpion, your fish. Okay. Those are all covered. They're all under the ectotherm category. So it's going to cost you money if you're not willing to drive. But it can be done, and it can be done safely, and it can be done with companies that have experience, and they know what they're doing, and they have people like you that work with them that can advise them, and they do it right. And that's the important thing is don't be chintzy. Don't try and cut corners and find the cheapest.
I think that's the problem. The value, folks don't really want to pay too much, or they're looking for the best buy. And you have to realize sometimes you can't skimp on certain things. You have to pay for the service for it to be done properly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the human animal bond. I mean, I have way too many animals, but if I were to move someplace, I would want to make sure that whoever is transporting my animals give them the first class treatment. I'll fly in economy, but I want my pets to fly first class.
Very good. Does Ship Your Reptile, do they transport internationally?
That's a very good question, and I don't know that answer. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. It's funny. I'm asking because I did have it was maybe a good year or two ago, one of my veterinary colleagues, she was considering moving internationally, and her daughter had a little gecko or something, and she was trying to figure out how to get that there to, I think she was going somewhere in Italy, and it was difficult. I think one company, it's quoted a good maybe $3,000-$4,000.
Yeah, I know there are commercial cargo companies.
Yeah.
Okay, that will ship reptiles internationally. Again, but you have to make sure you contact the embassy here and there and make sure all the ducks are lined up, so to speak. Otherwise, they won't take them, and it's not going to be cheap. How badly do you want to bring that gecko with you? You had asked me a question in an email about, did I ever have a client that was changed their decision about travel based on the fact that they wanted to travel with an exotic pet? And I did. I actually had a client, a very good client, who had a pet. It was a couple. They were no children, but they had a pet iguana, and the iguana was basically their surrogate child. And an iguana will live properly cared for 15, 20 years. And this was a younger iguana. This was back a couple of decades ago when tech was really getting popular, and he was a computer brilliant genius, and he got offered a job in Australia for tons of money. I mean, big money. And when he found out that he couldn't bring his lizard with him, because you can't import anything into Australia in terms of reptiles, he turned the job down. I also had a client come in, and they got a job in Australia, and they wanted to smuggle their iguana, and she was a fairly large woman, and she wanted to sedate the iguana and then tuck it into her bra, and then she thought she could just get on the plane and fly to Australia with an iguana in her bra, and it would just sleep the whole way. And I wouldn't do it. I refused to give her the tranquilizer or sign health certificates. And I said, if you can get through security in the United States, when you get to Australia, they're going to find it and they're going to kill it.
Oh, they're going to find it.
They're not going to send it back. They're going to kill it. And I said, I don't want to be part of that. It's cruel. And so I don't know if she ever made it to Australia or not. But yeah, I mean, definitely the human animal bond is strong, and it's strong enough to affect people's decisions, and even to the point of affecting their decisions based on their career and their life.
Yeah, I like that. and I respect that fully on air, but I don't like the fact that someone would actually break the law to have their pet with them and then put their pet in danger in reference to what they're doing, you know?
They don't, yeah, but they don't, there's a disconnect there. They don't think that. All they think is, this is my pet, I can't live without it. And I guess they feel that they're not putting their pet at risk by tranquilizing it, putting it on a plane for 16 hours illegally. You know, they don't get it.
Yeah. Wow, that's definitely an interesting story. I've never heard of those. You made me think again. I wanted to just see if we could talk a little bit about the person I told you recently that there's a new wave of folks wanting to transport bunnies in cabin. It's called Let Bunnies Fly. Again, my goal is, I understand what they're trying to do, but my goal is to really ensure all animals that are being transported by air are medically fit to fly and prepared with, medical fitness and the proper containment, all the documents are in order as far as meeting the destination country's requirements or state's requirements, and also airline policies. And we've considered the biosecurity risk of them being transported as far as diseases too. Just consider all that. That's my focus. And everything. But my question for you is, do you have many pet owners that have rabbits that travel with them by air?
No, well, that's a multi-part question. You're talking like a lawyer now. Yes or no, sir? I said, well, I thought a yes or no question. Yes, I have many clients that have pet rabbits. No, I don't have many pet clients that have pet rabbits that fly with them. Years ago, dogs, cats, and bunnies were kind of considered one and the same. If they fit in the carrier, then they fit under the seat, they could fly. But I don't know why it changed. I think because a lot of issues happened with rabbits that didn't happen with dogs and cats. One thing you have to remember is that a rabbit is a prey species, okay? So their mental state is very different. Their Umwelt, it's a German word for the world is perceived, is much different than a dog or a cat. Okay. Rabbits are wonderful pets. I love rabbits. I absolutely adore them. Except the fact that they see the world differently than a dog sees it and a cat sees it. Okay. So to a rabbit, a stranger is a potential scary situation. And then you get the fight or flight response. Right. And rabbits, if you've worked with rabbits in practice as a veterinarian, I don't think any veterinarian that's been out for a number of years has not had at least one rabbit die of fright, because it will happen. And so I think when you start traveling with a prey species like a rabbit that's not used to being in a carrier for 8 hours, people walking by and that kind of thing, and all the other stuff that's going on, and change of cabin pressure and all the other stuff, their health is at risk. Okay. So I think a lot of airlines said, no, we don't want to take that chance anymore. So get to the point, you brought up a really good point. Now, there's a lobby group called Let Bunnies Fly. I am familiar with them. I have not worked with them. And what their goal is they are trying to lobby airlines on a national basis to get airlines to once again allow rabbits to fly on planes in carriers with the proper preparation and paperwork and everything else. And I admire their mission, and I wish them the best of luck. But that's about as much as I know about them. I do know that they had one success, though. They actually were able to lobby Alaska Airlines now. They changed their policies, and they are now allowing bunnies on the plane as of January of this year.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I guess they can lobby and see, but what I love, the valid point you brought up, is that they're not like your routine dogs and cats. And they may be great pets at home and everything, but that's a familiar environment with them. But when you take them out into the environment that they're going to be exposed to, the unknowns of just travel in general, what they're going to experience, which is new for them either way, and it would be scary, you're subjecting them to that, and their response is a whole lot different than maybe a dog or cat. Even what you might see physically, even internally, where they have problems with their GI system and all the stuff could happen with them regarding that. And they're very fragile too. My experience in practice is that, that I remember is that they can snap their backs quick. They're very fragile animals. So you got to be careful what you subject them to, is my thought.
Getting into their bone structure, their bones are very porous, and their skeletal system is 13% less dense than even a comparable sized cat, so they can break bones easily. But they shouldn't be coming out of the crate. But I want to bring up another point that I bet you haven't thought about. Okay, so I travel about 50 to 75,000 miles a year, lecturing, teaching, book signings, things like that. All right. And I know you probably travel quite a bit too. How many times have you been on a plane and the cabin attendants go through their safety briefing and they say, and by the way, unfortunately today we have a passenger on the plane that's highly allergic to peanuts. So if you have a peanut snack, please, out of respect, don't bring it out of your bag. Did you know that more people are allergic to rabbits than any other house pet? So you put the rabbit in a carrier on a plane with recirculating air, that person sitting next to you or next to you could very easily pick up the dander from that rabbit and they could have a reaction to it. So that's just something to think about because there are people that are highly allergic to rabbit fur.
Wow. Never thought that.
Just saying, that's all.
That's smart. I mean, good point. Wonderful point. And to add that too, I wonder if, you think about people that are allergic to dogs or cats with their dander too. Well, I don't know if that's ever brought up when they're.
I don't know that it can be legally if somebody comes on a plane with, especially like a service dog.
That's different though. That's service dogs are different. They're going to take priority.
You're still allergic to it, service dog or not. If you're allergic to it, you can't be sitting next to it.
But guess what? If you're allergic to it, then you can take the next flight. They have precedence. They have priority.
Okay, there you go.
Everything. Yeah, they have priority. But now, like I said, if you have a cat,
because of what I said about the rabbits, but I'm just bringing up a point that's a valid point.
No, sir. Your point is extremely valid. The point I'm trying to make is service dogs have precedence. So a rabbit and all the others that's in cabin you're carrying, they don't have precedence. So they might not even announce, may not even be announced, but either way, service dogs have precedence. So if you're allergic to dogs, then you can catch the next flight because that service dog is that priority for that person. That's their medical need and it goes along with them and everything. Yeah. But when you talk about the thinking of the dander with the others that are in cabin, maybe in bags, that's never brought up an issue. And if you're saying people are more allergic probably to rabbit fur and their dander than maybe a dog or cat, maybe that's the reason why some of these airlines have decided that they don't allow them. Don't know.
I'm going to bring up another nasty point, and that is perfume. I'm not allergic to rabbits, but I tell you what, sometimes I've been on these flights and I've sat next to people wearing perfume, and oh my God, it's like bug spray. It's like, holy, I can't wait. Turn on the air, It's just, that's like,
you can't control it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, what can you do? Can't control it. But back again, though, it might be a reason why. I don't know why they decide. And there's a lot of stuff as far as in the airline industry. I personally was trying to understand and explain myself why certain things are in place. I don't know why. And you mentioned earlier, as far as in cabin transport, most airlines will allow domestically dogs, cats, and sometimes birds too domestically. Internationally, then that's when birds may not be able to go in cabin. So there's little things. And I think birds going internationally in cabin is because of probably the destination requirements or something like that. But either way.
Let's talk about that. So I just had a client last week that they wanted to take their bird down to somewhere in Central America. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't find a carrier that would let them take the bird in the cabin. They didn't want to put the bird in cargo. They, fortunately for them, they had the finances and they just hired a private flight. And there are, I did Google it and look it up. There are a few companies out there that are pet friendly private charters. And you hire the whole plane. It's a small jet, private, like a business jet. You hire the whole plane, whether you have 10 animals like I do, or whether you only have one, you hire the whole plane, and then you can go from point A to point B. Now, there's a company out there that actually, what they'll do is they don't like to fly empty planes, and to try and cut down costs, they may pick you and your bird up in Atlanta, and then they'll fly to Charlotte and pick up somebody else with their pet monkey. If you're willing to share the cost of them, it's like splitting a ride on Uber, right? And they'll just fly around the country because none of these carriers like to have a dead leg. So they try and arrange whatever hop, skip, and jump that they can around the country, picking up different animals. So you may or may not have a private plane if you can afford it, or you may share that plane with other people and their pets. But those options are out there. You can find them. They'll fly anything as long as you have the proper healthcare paperwork to get that animal on the plane from state A to state B.
I love that. And I think, to be honest with you, I'm just wondering how things are going to go in the future, because from my standpoint and what I see, it seems like a lot of airlines are diminishing, let's say, your routine pets. Well, the restriction of pets in cabin, if you think about it, it's going to be a size restriction. So you got a larger breed dog, it's not going. And I think the wave of the future, since there's airlines that are maybe not transporting as many pets by cargo, and then also people don't want to transport them by cargo, even though, as you mentioned earlier, I don't see anything negative about going in cargo with a pet. It's temperature control to around, say, 60 degrees Fahrenheit. It's ventilated and it is pressurized. I don't see the negative. I will put my pet in cargo. I'm not worried about it. But
okay, well, let me bring up a point that I think is real important. Yes, and that is connections. Okay. If you got a pet in cargo and you're making a connection and your flight's later, you miss your connection, that animal ends up on the tarmac or it ends up in a warehouse waiting for the next flight. That could be a huge issue. Okay. So that is a concern. It
is a concern, and it's usually out of the air. It's out of the airline's control, really. Technically, if you really.
I know. I'm not putting.
No, I'm with you, but that is the option that can happen.
The animal is at stake.
Yes, that's definite truth behind that. It could happen. Also, it could happen. Trust me, you're totally correct on that. It could happen in everything. So that is something to consider with it. But overall, in general, I don't view it as being the worst thing. I mean, of course, I don't want my animal on a tarmac. I want the airline to be responsive, and as soon as it lands, usually the animals are the first off and take them to where they need to be as far as being a holding area, temperature controlled holding area, so that they can get off the tarmac, basically. So I agree with that. But overall, I'm not against pets traveling by cargo. But what I think though is going to happen though is that there's going to be a wave going towards where there's going to be more options or abilities for pets to be transported either on a animal focused aircraft, or maybe they'll change the requirements in cabin. I don't know. Actually, no, I don't think they're going to change requirements in cabin. I think it's going to be more options. It's going to be more expensive, but there's going to be more carriers that's going to allow kind of pets with their parents type transport. We've got Retrieve Air, Canine Jets. I got you. There's a few others. Tuscan Hounds. They're popping up. So I think those are going to be the options. And the other one that you mentioned too.
You're going to have to go. And I'd like to make the point that if you're going to travel with a pet in a cargo area, I think it's safe. But my caveat is no layovers. Because again, I know you travel a lot. I travel a ton. I don't care how experienced you are. You're going to have a trip where things don't go well, and you end up stuck in some hotel overnight. And unless you can get that pet from the airline, keep it in a hotel with you overnight, you're not going to sleep the whole night wondering what's going on with your pet. So it's the angst. You can't measure it.
I agree. But if there is a layover, the airlines are responsible for those pets. They're supposed to actually be taken to a animal boarding, a kenneling facility overnight. Now, that's dogs and cats. When it comes to these other exotic species, your routine boarding facilities don't normally take your bird, your pet iguana, and others, exotic animals. So it'd be an issue. But just FYI, there are regulations that the airlines are supposed to comply with to ensure the safety of the animals. If there is a layover or something longer than 4 hours, they're supposed to go to a boarding facility. And kind of a network we developed when I was with Delta is that whenever we develop relationships with local boarding facilities and veterinary hospitals at every hub, every location, basically where it traveled to ensure that safety of those animals. But again, the little area that's a little gray is, will they take care of my pet monkey? Will they take care of and that's the issue. So I agree with you totally. If you can travel with a pet, exotic pet, say specifically going by cargo, nonstop, please. No layover.
Yeah. I think that's the take-home message for today is if you have to do it, try and find a nonstop one-way, nonstop ticket.
Yes.
And then I just kind of follow up with some of the other animals. I think when you start looking at trying to ship or travel with these animals, there are cargo companies. And as passengers, we tend not to think, we don't like to think of our animals as cargo, but the reality is some of them are going to fall into that category. And there are cargo companies that will ship mice, rats, guinea pigs, things like that You just have to call around and find
Gotta
them.
find them. Yeah.
To find them.
Yeah.
And then you can get somebody that will ship it for you. It's going to cost you, but it can be done. Or you drive, you rent a car, you
Right.
get on a track, or you get on Greyhound. It's find one of these other carriers, transit companies that will take these pets on board.
Right. And just to add on, you're saying there's other ways to get them, cargo carriers. I mean, how do you think horses are transported? Horses and the other larger, say, zoo animal species, they're transported on cargo freighters. I mean,
yeah, they're all private charters. Like, as I mentioned, I have a client that's what they do for a living, and they have charters, and they'll charter a 737 to take a particular animal from zoo A to zoo B, and that's what they do for a living. And so it can be done. It's just going to take time, effort, connections, and money. So it's not going to be cheap, but it can be done.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we've said a lot today, and I know we've covered a lot of interesting things. I'm really happy you're here and you've been a part of this journey with me as far as having these podcasts and sharing information. I love today. I think the last time we were talking more on disaster planning, you were just a wealth of information to share and everything. Before we close, is there anything else you want to share? Because again, you're just amazing to me with all the experience you have as a veterinarian, and you're just an example for the profession to show that we can do so many different things and benefit animals.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and it's quite an honor to be invited back. I thank you very much for that. There is something I want to talk about, and that is, and I think it's really important, and that is plan ahead. Okay, when you get on an airplane, the flight attendant gets on and they talk about the safety measures and they tell you how to unbuckle the seatbelt and where the oxygen is. They don't do that just to bore you. They do it because it's better that you know it so that you have that knowledge. If you have animals and you think you're going to go someplace, plan ahead. Okay. Take the time to make a plan, write it down, review the plan, and then things are going to go much more smoothly, because otherwise, if things fall apart and you're in the middle of it, it's a cluster. So, and who's going to suffer? Usually it's the pet. So take the time, make the effort, and just plan ahead. And it's going to cut down on so many headaches.
Yeah. And I say even you can have a plan A and a plan B, and might be a plan C. Get your contingency plan set up, because things never go exactly the way you think. They never really do. I mean, if it does, wonderful. But if it doesn't, you now know, what am I going to do next? Kind of thing. So yeah.
Then you don't panic.
Say it again.
So then you don't panic because you have no plan.
Yeah, because you already rehearsed in your head. Okay, if that doesn't work, then I'm going to do this. And make some plans. But I think that's perfect, and it'll benefit your pet, their welfare and safety during transport more than you ever know. And also think about those that are frequent flyers. I have one of my podcast guests. She has been traveling with her dog in cabin for years. Her dog is 17. She's been traveling for years with her dog in cabin. She said her dog is trained. She knows exactly what to do and everything. But imagine if she had a bad experience, she didn't plan something out, how it could impact that pet. But obviously, she has a plan. She's been through it all. Her dog is experienced, and it's simple. So you want to be that way and plan it out and have the dog travel stress-free. If you're freaking out, panicky, what do you think the impact it's going to have on your pet too in the long run? So, yeah. But yeah, planning is very important. So I appreciate that. Anything further you want to share about your experience? Anything as far as your philosophy? Actually, I think I put on your philosophy. What I love to share about you is that, strengthening the human-animal bond.
Yeah, I will share something here as we wrap it up, and that is, I've been doing this for over 4 decades, and I love what I do. I would do it all over tomorrow. What you don't know about me, Nelva, is that I was accepted in a med school the same year I was accepted into vet school.
Yeah,
it was vet school. It's like, I don't like people. I like animals. I love people, and if you don't love people, you're going to be a terrible veterinarian.
Correct.
I talk to a lot of these younger veterinarians in today's world, and it's like, oh, this is so bad. I would never do this again. I'm sorry, I would all over. I love my job. And part of the job that I love is protecting and promoting the human-animal bond. Every morning I get up, my biggest fear is that I'm going to make a mistake and I'm not going to do what I can to keep that human-animal bond strong and prolonged. And so I love it. And for me to be allowed into your family and you trust me enough that I can do that for you and your pets, I take that as an incredible honor and very seriously. And that's what keeps me going. And so it also keeps me learning and keeps me studying because I want to make sure that I'm current on everything. And I love learning. If I keep learning, hopefully this thing won't atrophy, Right. And I just love what I do. And I can never see myself not being a veterinarian in some capacity, just because it's a great profession, And I think we're so blessed that we get to do what we do.
I totally agree with you. I love veterinary medicine. I can't think of anything else I could have done with my life. I'm so thankful for the opportunities I've had. And the main thing is really interacting with people and their pets. And really, because the if we interact and educate them better, it's going to definitely trickle down to that pet and ensure their safety. So I love that. I love it.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, thank you everyone for joining us today. I think we had a great conversation. And of course, Dr. Doug, I'm gonna have you again next year because I think you just add so much value.
Thanks.
Folks, please go out and get his book. And I'm sorry, share again how to find it and get access to it because I didn't add the links there. But these are the books that he has out and the one that's coming soon. Please share that information.
Just go to the Simon & Schuster webpage and then type in the Vet from the Urban Jungle, and it'll take you right to the order page. And then from there, it gives you multiple options to order the book.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And join us, I guess, within the next few weeks. We'll have another guest on the show. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.